we are talking about holds. So holds are essentially a means of holding traffic. Air traffic control will say a hold over a fix or a VOR or an NDB, can be anything really. But essentially you're holding over a point. So let's say this is the VOR and you're about south of it. Let's just say you're south of the VOR. And when you're south of the VOR, let's just hypothetically say air traffic control says hold south of the VOR. So south of the VOR, you want to basically make a racetrack that is south of the VOR. And it's typically a nautical mile in length, each leg. So that's how it's going to look. It's going to start from the south. You're flying south back towards the VOR and then turning around it. So your racetrack really starts from the south of the VOR. So the next thing we want to talk about real quick is a refresher on the concept of VOR radials. So a VOR is essentially like a lighthouse. Think of it as a beacon, a lighthouse beacon sort of light setup. I don't know how else to say it. A lighthouse, there you go, with two flashing lights. That basically, one is constant, that sends out a signal to all these directions, and then the other one, think of it as a pulse, like a circling light that circles around, and it picks up, that circling light picks up where you are relative to this constant pulse of all these directions. These pulse direction lights are the radials, the light that emanates from the VOR in constant, let's say constant strength. It's just one beam. Those are the radials. They're coming from the VOR. So we call those the radials. Think of them as the highways. So whenever ATC says fly the 090 radial or the 360, that is, you are going to be on that line. The 090, you're going to be on this particular line, the 090 line. It doesn't matter what direction you're flying. It's the position relative to the VOR and where that highway line is. Now, if you're flying towards the VOR, let's say you're, like in this one, you're going to be on the 090 radial flying to the 270 radial. You're going towards the 270 highway. So you're flying to the radial. If you're flying away from it, like this image is showing, you're on the 090 and flying from the VOR 090 from the VOR. So you're on the 090 radial, doesn't matter what direction you are. Think of yourself as a dot at that point. That's all the VOR is not, that signal doesn't know what direction you're going relative to your heading, and that's why you've got to place the flag to versus from. So the radials are the beams that are emanating from the VOR. So typically from the VOR, that's the name of it. Okay, so let's talk about holding. So a standard hold is right-hand turns. They're right-hand turns. So let's do an example. Hold on the 090 radial of the VOR, whatever VOR it may be. Standard turns. That's what an instruction might be from ATC. So it looked like this. You've got the VOR. We're going to do a top-down view. And you've got the 090 radial or the 090 line emanating from the VOR. And this is where you are. Let's say you are over here. Your standard right-hand turn on the 090 radial is going to look like this. You're going to have it on the 090 radial, and then you're going to make the racetrack turning right. So that's how the track will look like. And in this case, you will enter, the first type of entry will be a direct entry. If you're like pretty close to the entry heading, you're just going to go straight to the VOR and start the racetrack, essentially. It's typically 1 minute holds. I might have said nautical mile, but it's 1 minute. 1 minute of flying in one direction, 1 minute flying in the opposite direction. unless you are told otherwise. So let's say you're coming from this direction now, from the opposite direction, and they still tell you to hold on the 090 radial. So you're still going to have to cross the, VOR, but in this case we're going to enter what's called a parallel entry. There's really three types of entries, and this one's going to be parallel. Parallel meaning you're going to fly in the opposite direction of the inbound turn. You're going to do an opposite turn, a left turn to the standard turn, and then enter the pattern. So you're going to turn left right back to the radial. So in this case, you're typically going to turn left and go past the turn inbound, which would be 270, by about 40 degrees. So in this case, you turn left to subtract 40 degrees. So it'd be about 230 heading until you re-intercept the 270 inbound, and then you're going outbound on the 090. So if you're holding on the 090 radial, you are flying the reciprocal towards the VOR. There's one more entry called a teardrop entry. So let's put ourselves in the same scenario with the VOR and a 090 radial again. And you are over here on the bottom left hand side, but you're going to still do that right hand 090 radial hold. If you're in the bottom left hand area of the screen, you're going to enter now what's called a teardrop entry. You're going to enter 30 degrees off course for a second there, and then inbound on the 090, which will be a 270 heading. There's a saying, Lars is 30 years old. Lars is 30. If you're doing a left-hand turn, you add 30 degrees to the heading you are flying. If you're doing right-hand turns, which is standard, you'd subtract 30 from the heading that you'd be entering, or from the radial, excuse me. So in this case, if the radial is 090, you're going to subtract 30. So you're going to fly a heading of 060 for a minute, and then fly a heading of 270 to fit into the hold, and then fly the pattern. Same concepts apply with a left-hand hold. So if this is the VOR and 090 radial, we're going to just use that, keep it going this way. And they say hold over the 090 radial left or non-standard turns. So the racetrack's going to look like this now, where you're doing left-hand turns over the 090 radial. What's going to happen here is you still do the same thing. You've just got to figure out whether you enter parallel, teardrop, or entry based off your current position. So in this case, we're going to, let's say we are over here. This one is going to be a teardrop entry. It makes the most sense to be a teardrop entry. You're still going to, now it's a left-hand turn, so we're going to add 30 degrees. So if 090 was the instruction, you're going to add, because it's left Lars 30, left add 30, so 90 plus 30 is 120. So you're going to fly a heading of 120 for a minute, past the fix, then turn left to re-enter the hold on the 270 inbound course, 190 radial, 1 minute turns. Okay, sometimes it's 4 nautical miles. You do the same for parallel or direct. Let's look at it from a practical point of view. Let's do it from flying. And the trick is either the pencil or thumb method, because it's going to be a pain in the butt really to be drawing out the VOR and trying to figure out what entry makes the most sense. There are no, as long as you stay within the racetrack area, the designated racetrack area, you can almost enter however way you'd like, but those parallel, teardrop, or direct entries are the common ways we typically do it. So let's look at it from this point of view. We've got our VOR and OBS. We're going to the VOR, and they tell us to hold over the VOR. So depending on, it doesn't matter where you are, but we're going to the VOR. We're flying to it at the, we're flying to the VOR on the 320 radial. What you do is you draw a line about halfway through the OBS, but we tilt the right side. We lift the right side since it's right-hand turns, and then you draw something in the middle. You split it in the middle there. And then it's P, T, and D on the face. Any of those radials, if they tell you to hold on any of those radials on the P side of the pie, you enter parallel. If it's on the T side of the pie, teardrop. D, direct. So for example, if they say hold on the 330 radial, there's the 330 radial, the 33 number. It'd be a direct entry. If it says hold on the east or 090 radial, it's on the P side of this pie, so you'd have a parallel entry in this case. If it is a teardrop entry, let's say they say hold on a 180 heading, you'd enter on a teardrop flight. And I'll give you some actual examples of how to do that in the air. So let's say now it's left-hand turns. If they tell you to do left-hand turns, it's a little bit different. You lift the left side of the middle line. So you're still going to do the pencil method, similar concept. And left turns is toilet paper. It's crap. It's not the normal. So it's toilet paper is the way I remember it. So you still draw that line, but you lift the left side a little bit more than the right-hand side. And you still draw that middle line. And it's now T, P, D. So toilet paper and the direct stays the same. So T, P, D for left-hand turns. Again, if they say hold on the 090 radial, for example, or let's say 120 radial, that's going to be a teardrop entry. You know you're going to fly a teardrop entry, and it's left-hand turn, so Lars is 30, so left you add 30. So you'd add 30 to 120 and enter on a 150 heading first in that particular case. If they say hold on a 300 heading, or 300 radial, that'd be a direct entry. That'd be a direct entry. So those are all the basics, concepts relative to the concepts of holds. Let's now do practical flying and doing holds.